Spanning all kinds of media and merchandise including films, comics, toys and video games, there can be no denying that the Transformers franchise is a pretty big deal. Despite its popularity, it's a franchise that, apart from the awful Michael Bay films, has completely passed me by. So you're probably wondering to yourself, why on earth have I decided to review a Transformers video game? Well, the answer is pretty simple: Platinum Games. The Japanese development company are responsible for creating some of my favourite games in recent years, such as Bayonetta and Metal Gear Rising. Recently I've been getting an urge to play a good old hack and slasher, but there is currently little to choose from on the current generation of consoles. I managed to stumble across Transformers Devastation whilst looking online, and decided to give it a go. The Platinum Games DNA is clear to see throughout the entire game. From the combat to the scoring system, those who have played any of the company's previous games will feel right at home. Although I feel like this latest effort from Platinum is not an example of their very best work, it is still a decent high-octane action game that, although flawed, I'm sure will provide joy to fans of the genre and Transformers alike. The narrative that sets the ball rolling is pretty simple. Megatron and his evil army of Decepticons are attempting to cyberform the Earth, and it's up to the Autobots to save the day. Even for someone like me who has limited knowledge of the Transformers franchise, I found the story easy to follow and to be well written. Hidden data logs expand on the story for those who want to learn more, and I did find it interesting discovering more about the Transformers universe. Regardless of how good the story is, the true test of a hack and slasher is the quality of the combat mechanics, and for the most part this game manages to impress. The fighting is fast, fluid and responsive, everything that is required from this type of game. Most combos involve a combination of light and heavy attacks, but there also exist more advanced techniques and special moves. Bayonetta's Witch Time mechanic also makes an appearance, renamed here as Focus. If the player dodges an enemy attack just before the moment of impact, they can slow down time and punish the enemy. I personally think that this is a fantastic game mechanic, so I have no qualms about its inclusion in Transformers Devastation. New moves and techniques can be also purchased from the in-game shop, giving the already stylish combat a real sense of depth. Unfortunately, at times the combat is let down by the game that surrounds it. The camera, put plainly, can be absolutely bloody awful at times, with attacks coming from seemingly out of nowhere. In addition, the default controls have the same button configured as vehicle attack, dodge and transform, leading to times where the Autobot decides to transform rather than dodge and vice versa. Despite these problems, the combat does manage to feel fresh throughout the entire game due to the fact there are 5 playable characters to choose from, all with different combat styles. Optimus Prime, for example, is the all-round character, whereas Bumblebee, although not as powerful, is a lot more agile and more nimble on the battlefield. The player is free to change their characters at various times during each level, and there is a lot of room to experiment with different playstyles. It does however seem like the featured levelling up system is counterintuitive to this idea of player experimentation. Through experience gained in battle, specific items and by spending credits, one is able to level up each character in 8 different categories. This allows the player to increase attributes such as health and melee attack strength. Although this sounds like a good idea, during my first playthrough I ended up with Optimus being over level compared to the rest of the crew. I did attempt to switch things up and use other characters during this initial playthrough, but as you can probably guess I ended up performing much worse with these weaker characters and decided to eventually just stick with Optimus Prime. I feel as though it would have been a better idea to level up all the characters at once rather than one at a time, as it takes an awful lot of grinding to increase every character's stats. This RPG-like system is also present when it comes to the game's weaponry. The player is able to find weapons throughout each level which can be equipped to various characters. There is a huge amount of weapon variety, and it is impressive that there are so many different options available to the player. As well as being able to level up the stats of the Autobots, there also exists the option to level up weapons via synthesizing them with other weapons. Again, although in theory this sounds like a decent inclusion, it can prove to be quite the opposite. I managed to upgrade a hammer to the point where it had a rating of over 1000 damage. Seeing as all the other available melee weapons had a damage rating in the 200 to 300 range, this pretty much rendered them all obsolete and discouraged me from using them. The main campaign takes place over 7 chapters, and according to my in-game stats, it took me 5 hours to complete my first playthrough. I'm sure there will be some who bemoan this, just as there were those who were unhappy about the similar runtime of Metal Gear Rising, although personally I feel as though this is just about the right length for a hack and slash game. This type of video game is designed to be played over and over again on various different difficulty settings, and a short runtime suits this. As soon as I finished Transformers on a normal difficulty setting, I immediately started the story again on the harder setting. With the game containing 5 playable characters to use over 5 different difficulty settings, 2 of which are unlockable, this game does contain a hell of a lot of replay value. The majority of the campaign takes place in New York City, as well as a Cybertronium ship, the Proud Star. I found the game world to be rather disappointing and lacking in variety. A lot of the areas are reused and recycled, and despite how good the combat can be, it does at times feel like a budget platinum title. Perhaps the worst offender in terms of level design is the final chapter. This level is basically just a series of octagonal platforms linked to one another. The player engages in a battle on a platform, moves to the next one, and then engages in another fight. As this is near the climax of the game, you would expect it to be an exciting finish, yet it just ends up feeling like a really lazily designed level. Ask anyone who played Bayonetta 2 and I'm sure they will all remember the opening fight against the colossal demon Gamora. And I'm sure fans of Metal Gear Rising will have fond memories of the climatic fight with the over-the-top villain the Senator. However, Transformers Devastation just doesn't contain a moment which is as magic as either of these. With the likes of Metal Gear and Bayonetta, it seemed as though Platinum Games were given free rein to create fights as crazy and as outlandish as they wanted, leading to one extraordinary encounter after another. Transformers on the other hand features two types of enemy encounters, normal sized robots and bigger sized robots. It's a strange thing to say that a game about giant robots lacks a sense of scale, but most of the brawls in Transformers Devastation come off as just feeling small. The final boss encounter is a particular disappointment. It's a two-part fight against Megatron that's over in a flash. It has nothing on the finales featured in Platinum's other games. In summary, Transformers Devastation contains a fantastic combat system, and if I were to base my review purely on that fact, then there would be very little for me to complain about. However, the rest of the game that surrounds the combat suffers from the feeling of being a bit bland in terms of mission structure and level design. I feel as though fans of Transformers will probably get more out of this game than hack and slash fans. Transformers Devastation comes off feeling like a bit of a mishmash. If more time and effort had been put into the game world and level design, then it could sit along the best games in its genre, but instead it will just have to settle for somewhere in the middle. Thank you very much for watching this video, please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you all soon. Till next time, goodbye.